Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. At the Monroe County Board of Health meeting on February 10th, Bloomington Utilities Director Vic Kelson gave the board an update on the wastewater sampling program. Kelson explained how to access the data using the City of Bloomington Open Data Portal.
And if you've never been to the City of Bloomington's new Open Data Portal, this is on Socrata. This replaces our old Be Clear site. And the way I get to it, because I can never remember anything and I never make bookmarks, is I just search for utilities. And one of the links inside of there is City of Bloomington SARS-CoV-2 wastewater monitoring. So I can click on this and it brings up information about all the sites we have. But I'm just going to go to the visualization and create a visualization for it. I'm not going to save it. I'm going to make the date be on the x-axis. The measurement on the y-axis is gene copies per 100 milliliters, which is, these are not actually viruses. These are indicator genetic material that shows that there has been viral, these are shed in fecal material, and it's the leftover, I guess, the leftover bits from the virus. I'm not a biochemist, so I don't know all the details of that, but it's not really the virus. We're not risking anybody's health by having them collect these samples or anything like that. I'm going to group them because we have multiple sample sites. And then I'm going to tell it that I want to see the moving average of the data. So you'll see here, this is a graph of all the data that we're collecting.
The board then discussed Monroe County's mask regulation and whether or not it should be extended. Board member Mark Norrell said that although masks are effective, there are other factors that the board should consider in making their decision for the community.
You know, we could pretty confidently say that the science is settled about masking being effective, but you know, at the same time, we gotta recognize that there are negative effects that affect everybody, so just to sort of, for us to say masks are effective, therefore we need to continue wearing masks and do it by mandate. Maybe we want to talk about that, and if I can kind of give you sort of, you know, as Penny was talking about these factors, I'm making sort of mental notes in terms of all these sort of other factors that are going on now, besides just sort of saying masks are effective. We, you know, like number one, our vaccination rates, like we just said, that IU Bloomington campus has a 95% vaccination rate. Monroe County, Penny just said 60-ish. It's like right at 57%. That's quite high. We currently have a high transmission rate if you look at the dashboard, as does all the Indiana counties. But it's 100% Omicron. And Omicron, that variant seems to, it's the prevalent strain, but it's less severe in its manifestation. And a lot of people are getting Omicron that don't have symptoms. They have very mild illness. They're good about getting tested. And they find out, oh, I got COVID, right? And they do the right thing, but they get past it. So that's another consideration, is the strain that we've got is maybe a consideration.
Norrell added that although he believes Monroe County is almost out of the woods with the Omicron variant, he is still concerned about the high rates of hospital occupancy and the healthcare workers are worn out. During public comment, concerned mother Angela Northcutt asked the board to reconsider the mask mandate.
Because of your decision as a Board of Health to continue the mask mandate, our schools have no choice, and we as parents have no choice for our children. Your job as health officials is to make informed decisions. As you can tell, I'm really frustrated. At this point, It does not appear you are making decisions based on health, but your own personal beliefs, as someone stated here. And it clearly seems as though your decisions are political. The personal health decisions of my family should be my choice. Our children are being harmed. My first grader has never seen his teacher smile at him in his classroom because of your decisions. You need to remove this mask mandate now and put the decisions in the hands of the parents. And I've been on this call the whole time. And as Carol and Mark both stated earlier regarding the fecal matter and the waste and how to analyze this, all of this data should be used to inform the community with data so that they can decide for themselves as to how to handle the situation. That is exactly what Carol and Mark said, and that should be no different with masks. Thank you.
The board agreed to recommend that the county commissioners rescind the mask mandate when the governor's executive order expires on March 4th. On February 9th at the Monroe County Commissioners meeting, Board of Health Director Penny Caudill shared information on the effectiveness of wearing masks to protect individuals from contracting COVID-19.
There is another study out regarding the effectiveness of masks. People who reported always wearing a mask in indoor public settings were less likely to test positive for COVID-19 than people who didn't. Some notes about that. A cloth mask wearer reduced their risk by 56%, a surgical mask by 66%, and a KN95 or an N95 by 83%. Remember that wearing a mask correctly is the key. And a cloth mask with multiple layers, heavier material, and perhaps with a filter is much better than a thin mask. So the mask you wear matters. No mask is effective when it's worn incorrectly, such as on your chin. So what does all this mean? It means that transmission is still high in Monroe County and in the state of Indiana. Masks do help to reduce infection and transmission. The data is holding true for how Omicron moves through other places, and we are optimistic that we are moving through this surge of Omicron. Vaccination is still our best tool to end the pandemic and to reduce the risk of a new surge. Continuing to use all of our prevention tools will allow us to move forward from this pandemic. Thank you.
Later in the meeting, the commissioners approved an agreement with Clark Excavating LLC for the demolition of surplus property. Facility and fleet manager Greg Crone explained that the structures set to be demolished are too worn to salvage.
We did look at trying to recycle materials out of both buildings. One of the structures is a shelter half like you'd see it at our parks, but due to insect and water rot, there's no recoverable material from it. The garage structure at some point has been modified to be a residence that wasn't ever inspected or under permit. So due to things that were done inside of it, as well as water intrusion and animal damage, there was not any real material in there we're salvaging. So this is for the full demolition and haul away of both of those structures.
The next county commissioner meeting will be held on February 16th. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of regretting what I do, just to join the crowd.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell. And you would never know it by looking at me.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
There for me every day.
Believing in me. Showing me what's possible.
I can be strong enough to respect myself and my body.
To say I can rather than I can't.
To say no with no apology.
To be a leader.
To finish school.
To own my future.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the Monroe County Council meeting on February 8th, County Auditor Catherine Smith gave an update on the annexation remonstration process. Smith explained that they are still counting the numbers and double-checking certain parcels of land that had previously received waivers from the city.
If the waiver is over 15 years old, I want you to know that I'm following state law. The press release kind of sounded like he really wanted me not to count those. However, when all of us are elected officials, we all swore to uphold state, local, and the laws and the Constitution, okay? The state law says if it's over 15 years, I cannot count it. So I want to be very clear with you on what my position was. So I will not be counting any waiver that's over 15 years. So that leaves all the waivers under 15 years. So once we get a good set of the ones that are applicable, we've checked ownership, we've checked all that, then we have to go in and we have to say, what did this piece of property look like? Did it cover this person's house, that person's house? Because one waiver can cover 300 houses, right? Because it was a farm when the waiver was written, and now it's a big giant subdivision. So I have 15 days to finish this. We're going to work consistently, hard as we can to get it done. But with COVID hitting our office the week before the snowstorm and then the snowstorm, I didn't want people to worry about things, because I'm sure you know we were off. You probably heard we had sickness in our office, pretty severe sickness, but we're moving on. And I don't want people to keep asking, well, are the mayor's numbers right? Are your numbers right? My numbers are not going to be right until we put every piece together and we've investigated every single one in those. We can sort of tell you what we've vetted and we know are going to count, but there's still a big subset of ones we have to drill farther down into and do a deep dive into all the attributes and all the variants associated with those parcels.
Next, the council heard from the prosecutor's office about appropriating funds toward a high-tech crime unit in partnership with Indiana University. Prosecuting attorney Erica Oliphant outlined what a high-tech crime unit would entail.
First of all, high-tech crime is any crime where you can get evidence from a digital source. So it doesn't mean necessarily that, I think a lot of people think of some of the crimes that take place on the internet, but really it can be anything. It can be homicides, it can be any manner of things. And so the high-tech crime unit, what it will do is process digital evidence, do a forensic process on cell phones, computers, sometimes it's even like fitness trackers, any kind of digital device like that that may contain evidence can be analyzed by the high-tech crime unit. And we will be servicing a region that's about 10 counties in our region. Right now, there's only a couple of these units that are fully operational, that are kind of serving as prototypes for our high-tech crime unit. So the good news is I don't have to fully reinvent the wheel, because we have some models to draw from. And this is a resource that's sorely needed. The nice thing about digital evidence is that it's very valuable. It can both help to prove a case by providing communications about the crime, sometimes even video and photographs of the crime, those kinds of things. But it can also help to exonerate folks who are not guilty of these offenses and help eliminate suspects as well. So in some ways, it is as good, if not better, than DNA evidence, because DNA really only proves that someone was in a place, but it doesn't tell you when, why, how, and a lot of those things that you can sometimes get from those communications and photographs and things like that. So I'm very excited. I do think this is going to provide us some beneficial evidence in a more timely fashion in some of those bigger cases that we see here in Monroe County. So hopefully will help us get better results in court. Thank you.
The council approved the appropriations unanimously. At the Ellettsville Plan Commission meeting on February 3rd, David Drake was re-elected as the president of the commission, and Dan Swafford was appointed as vice president. The Plan Commission then heard from petitioner Dan Duncan, who asked for permission to build 5 self-storage buildings on his property next to the Ellettsville Fire Department. According to the Director of Planning and Development, Kevin Talati, the land is zoned C3 commercial and storage units are permitted in this area. He explained how the proposed development fits in with the Plan Commission criteria.
As with all development plans, there are 11 criteria for the Plan Commission to consider, which I can very briefly go over. Compatibility with surrounding land uses. It's permitted by right. There's already storage units there. So I think that fits right in. Compatibility of the development plan with the recommendations of the comp plan. This is recommended for commercial use. That fits in as well. Adequate provisions for internal management of traffic. Drive aisles should be plenty wide for all vehicles to get through for the new building, so there shouldn't be any issues with that. And all the traffic will funnel on Seasons Drive. I imagine out to 46, if they really wanted to, they could go north up through Autumn Ridge, but I don't see that happening.
Commission member Sandra Hash asked if they were going to limit the hours the storage facility would be used, since there is a residential area so close nearby. Duncan said that customers would have 24-hour access to the facilities, but explained that the traffic should not be high enough to create much disruption.
Please understand, one of the things about a self-storage facility is it has very low traffic impact. You know, it's not, people don't rent a unit and then come and go 3 or 4 times a month. Normally, they're back and forth 2 or 3 times to load up, and then if they come by once or twice a month, that's unusual. So there will not be much traffic in the whole facility.
Duncan also mentioned that they are paying attention to light pollution and its mitigation. The board approved the development plan unanimously. And because we missed CATSweek last time due to the severe weather, we'll have a quick rundown of last week's meetings after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to CATSweek. On February 2nd at the Bloomington City Council meeting, City Consultant Jonathan Ingram from the Novak Consulting Group presented their findings on the effectiveness of the city boards and commissions structure. Ingram explained the observations they made while watching the boards and commissions in action.
Right now, there are 49 boards and commissions, right? So one of the things to really emphasize here is this clearly demonstrates that one of the things that you all as a city value is transparency, is public engagement, and really collecting input from your community, from the vast amount of expertise to really help engage your citizenry with the inner workings of the local government. Each of these has been added with the community's interest in mind, right? So, the reason for adding these commissions are really usually in response to very specific issues, very important policy issues. But over time, what has happened is that many of the boards and commissions, have developed really overlapping missions, and it's created some confusion regarding role and accountability of kind of certain features. And it's also kind of compounded work and created redundancy in terms of moving sort of policy questions through the policy development and execution process. And this also, we see that this has done a couple of things. It's strained staff capacity. One of the things I'll talk about in a minute is just kind of the amount of time that goes into managing the board and commission process. And it's created some difficulty in recruiting and retaining members on the boards and commissions. There's really a number of commissions with significant long-term vacancies in terms of getting folks to fill them. And that really impedes sort of progress in that space and diminishes the value of those commissions. So we also see that there's kind of a lack of clarity in terms of how board and commission advice is sort of transmitted and utilized in the policy development process. So we've tried to focus recommendations to try to address these broad bucket issues. We also know that just from a management perspective, in terms of how the process is organized, it's a very decentralized process. So there's kind of a lack of central coordination, and it creates some inconsistency and inefficiency in terms of how each individual board and commission is managed. In some cases, vacancies are filled very quickly. In some cases, they remain open for extended periods of time. There can sometimes be very kind of limited communication to applicants, depending on the commission. And there's also no sort of central owner in the city of the onboard database, which is used to really manage the process. And there's also kind of an opportunity to enhance training for new board and commission members around kind of key housekeeping things in terms of open meeting laws, kind of roles and responsibilities of staff liaisons, kind of what the expectations are. So again, we built some recommendations in our assessment that speak to these issues as well.
Council member Sue Scamboluri asked about the outcome of public input in other cities where Novak has recommended consolidating certain boards and commissions.
Not so much to contradict you, but perhaps to put a finer point on your statement. You mentioned that we should be thinking in terms of skill sets that are needed to do a given set of work. I would also add, beyond just skill sets is also perspectives.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily tied to just a skill. It might be tied to a perspective. So I offer that thought.
That's a great clarification. And absolutely.
When you have recommended to other cities and towns that they consolidate, and I realize it's a very broad question, when you've recommended to other cities and towns that they consolidate or blend or streamline, I guess my ultimate question is, what happened to public input? What did they say, gosh, we're not getting the input that we needed anymore? Or you know what? Public input didn't suffer at all. We're getting the same quality of input and better quality input.
Yeah.
So can you comment on that?
Ingram replied, saying that it is important that the public has an opportunity to engage and the citizens know how to do so. He said that since Bloomington already does a good job at that, it just needs to maintain it.
If there is a group of citizens who feel like who have something to say, who feel like they don't have an avenue to say it, you as city council are going to hear about that. Right. And that's one of those things that's going to kind of help you all determine whether sort of additional modifications might be necessary. But I have not seen any adjustments that we've recommended, because our goal is not to decrease transparency or the opportunity for engagement. Our goal is to make it as valuable as possible, to build a structure that helps take that information and convert it into policy decisions.
At the COVID-19 press conference held on January 28th, IU Health President Brian Shockney said that the IU Health South Central region had just recorded the second highest number of patients since the start of the pandemic. He also asked community members to seek out the proper level of care to keep the hospital beds available for those patients who need them the most.
So as we look at our COVID-19 admissions since the pandemic began, this last week was the second highest census we've experienced through the pandemic. Our IU Health South Central Region COVID-19 inpatient graphic shows that unvaccinated people continue to make up the majority of individuals who need hospitalization when they have COVID-19. As our state data reports, only about half of Hoosiers that are eligible to get their COVID-19 booster have done so, which could also be a contributing factor to those hospitalized, as Commissioner Cottle was saying, or as Administrator Cottle was saying. That's part of the reason why people are being hospitalized without that booster. Fully vaccinated means both doses and the booster. This high number of people were experiencing symptoms and testing positive is causing also our emergency departments across the state of Indiana to be very busy. Our South Central Region emergency departments are no exception. This one day, this past week, we surpassed our highest number of patients that we have ever had in our expanded emergency departments at our new IU Health Bloomington Hospital. That's a record for us. Thank goodness we have our new hospital, and it's larger, but it's overwhelming sometimes to see the numbers of patients that are going through there, many of them due to COVID symptoms. Therefore, we're continuing to ask that those with true emergencies and life-threatening concerns seek care with our emergency departments without question. And we also ask that those with more mild COVID symptoms or other non-emergent reasons seek care at our locations and our facilities that are aimed at less emergent care. So by choosing the level of care that best suits your healthcare needs, you can help by ensuring emergency department beds are readily available for those who truly need that level of care.
Indiana University Vice Provost of Communications, Kirk White, reported on the rate of cases of COVID-19 at IU and announced that they have made masks available to the public.
Our total number on the Bloomington campus was 806. 710 of that is in our student population and 96 with our faculty and staff. But as Dr. Carroll mentioned, it's consistent with the rest of the community in the state. And we still believe that with our high vaccination rates, we're going to be able to continue to keep things on an even keel and not have as high a rate of serious infection, which is what we've exactly seen with the 95% vaccination rate. We did last week, were able to make available the KN95 masks for a higher level of protection. It took some work in our procurement department to find enough of those, but I'm happy to report that as of today, we've distributed over 4,000 KN95 masks on the Bloomington campus, and we'll continue to receive supplies and distribute those. If you'd like one, we're ramping up to be able to supply one per person per week. And you can pick those up at our COVID-19 testing site.
Mayor John Hamilton answered a question from journalist Dave Askins about whether or not the sanitation department has made changes to allow them to keep working despite the city reporting higher numbers of employees testing positive.
Well, thanks for asking, and it does give me a chance to thank our sanitation workers. Of course, our numbers depend upon where they are in our workforce: police, fire, sanitation, parks, water service, et cetera. But it is true, last week, our sanitation workers, including the head of the department, got on the back of the trucks to help. We lost about half of our employees on one period, and they actually just ran double shifts that day. They did a double circuit from what they usually did, worked longer, and that was a wonderful. We had some workers from the street department step up and say, I'll help that day. So we've seen wonderful collaboration and volunteering, and I know that's the case in so many workforces, and we appreciate that.
And that's all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.